studying in Canada, I mean, you were talked specifically about one college, and now you do work with students or people who've studied within various institutions across Canada. So, do you believe that studying abroad brings a different dimension to personal and professional growth? And like, what advice would you have for students considering similar opportunities, more so from India?
Absolutely. I think, of course, coming into a different country, especially a more developed country, it opens up a lot more doors for you. I think the good thing I like about Canada is people are so much more focused on skill set versus education. So I was able to get into KPMG even though I did a diploma program, versus that wouldn't have happened if I was back in India. You know, you have to go through your bachelor's and your master's to be able to get into any decent company. So I think that focus of skills and real life experience over your education credentials is something I really value in Canada. And definitely, you know, leaving that sheltered home and coming to a new country, it really opens up your entire world. You know, you grow up quite a lot faster, you learn responsibility, but you also get to, I think, build your own identity in a way, identity that is separate from your nationality, your religion, your parents. You know, you are pretty much starting from scratch and you get to rewrite what you want that to be. I definitely think pick has a big role to play in it, because just because of the latest trend that is in Canada, you know, we are seeing such a big influx of international students, and that has happened over the past 5 years. So we are sort of in a situation now where the students are, the student enrollment is increasing at a rate in which the support is, and not as scalable as the student population is becoming. And there are a lot of new institutions that are coming into play, which are majorly just international students, right? Like we have institutions that are 99% international students, majorly from a few countries. So you don't get to experience that cultural diversity, what is being a true Canadian, you know, which is the cultural diversity that you experience. Because when you go into the workforce, you would come across people from 20 different ethnicities that you have to work with. And being able to do that, you know, the setting stone happens in the institution where you choose to study. And also the entire work integrated learning experience, which I was talking about, which I had because of my internship. You know, experiences like that are also important for you to have when you're studying, because that allows you to graduate with better skill set. And as I mentioned before, skill set is what is the king in Canada, not really your education. So I definitely would suggest that, you know, the students that are coming in now or choosing or even thinking about studying in Canada, they really institutions that they're picking, and also think about the programs that they're picking. You know, a lot of programs that are designed here are very generalized, which is more so for existing students to just maybe get an idea about a new industry. They aren't really meant to be specializations, aren't really meant to be something that lands you actual skill set to land a job, but merely is a introduction to a new industry. You know, so also think about the courses you are picking. Is it a specialized course or is it a generalized course? Is that a course that will end up getting you some skill set that you can take to the market and end up finding a job in it? I think there are a lot of these questions you have to ask, and that's essentially where I think the Canam service of actually looking at it as a career and looking at the kid and the interest of that person and what do they really want to do, and being able to pick a program according to that. I think that is the approach we need to go, versus, you know, the private agency approach that is like, I am partnered up with three colleges, these are the programs they offer, just pick one. And I think, I hope students get to make that choice and see things from a bigger picture, and get to see what they're able to do after they get the permanent residency. Because I find a lot of students chase permanent residency and they forget that that card is not going to change your life. You're still going to do the same job, you're still going to go to the same work and earn the same amount of money until you upskill yourself and change something. Permanent residency is just a status that allows you to stay in Canada. It doesn't change anything about the work, the happiness, the satisfaction you would have doing the work you do. So better start focusing on the work part first, the career part first, and permanent residency and all these immigration processes comes as a part of it and isn't really a destination, but a stop along the way, which just is a formality. And I hope students shift that perspective when they choose to come to Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. So truly correctly spoken. I actually was going to ask you the same thing. So, like, could you highlight any particular resources or support services that CanAm provided you with for your study abroad journey that you found really particularly valuable?
I definitely will echo what I said before. That is the approach of looking at it as a career versus it just being about coming to Canada. I think the fact that you guys are partnered up with pretty much every institution in Canada and you
Mm.
do have that wide range of selection you can make, and the agents are really well equipped to make sure that the files they are processing are right, because I haven't just used Canam to come to Canada. Also use Canam services to help with my parents' super visa and then visitor visa. And throughout that entire process, I found that it was always the same experience. It was always very streamlined. We weren't over promised anything. We weren't given like a rosy picture of like this is how it's going to be and you don't have to worry. Even with my parents super visa, it was pretty clear in terms of everything they would need and what that timeline looks like. But even though the process was delayed because of the Canadian government, the support they continued to get was always the same amount. It's the same experience with the customer service. And I had the exactly same experience with my agent when, even though my invitation letter was so delayed, every time I would call, I would never get like, stop calling me, it will come when it'll come. They were always very nice to me. They always listened and they were like, it's okay, we'll follow up. And I ultimately ended up, and they didn't even try to be like, it's okay, you should just forget about George Brown and just go to any other institutions. They did, however, later tell me they had some backup invitation letters for me, but they knew that I wanted to go to George Brown and they were waiting for me to get there. And I think that kind of support is really important for students because ultimately it has to be that career you build, and the program and the institution you pick is the very big step of it. And that really changes the experience you can have in Canada, because now that I work with thousands of students, I have talked to students from a variety of range of institutions, people who come to the top university in Canada versus students who are coming to private colleges that are not even a year old. And of course the experience they have, the satisfaction they have, and actually the return on investment they get, what they make in Canada, looks so different. And ultimately, I hope all the students are able to get into the institutions that actually have the infrastructure and the facilities and the resources to help them pick a better career and actually gain some skill set. And I think that's essentially where Canon really tops the chart. The fact that you guys are so focused on that part into actually helping students pick their passion, and not just another student getting a visa and getting out of the country. So I think that entirely changes why people should pick Canam as their service.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so looking back at your journey, are there any specific moments or milestones that you're really proud of? And how do they relate to your time at your education provider, which was George Brown in this case?
Mhm. I think George Brown's entire experience was definitely something that I really think about it fondly, and I would go back and experience it again anytime I get. One of the proud moments during my George Brown study was definitely getting a scholarship. I was in my second or third semester, and I was getting good grades, so I applied for a scholarship, and I was able to get. It wasn't a lot, but at least some amount of money that I was able to apply towards my tuition. And when you're paying three times the tuition, any money counts. And my parents were very relieved that at least they didn't have to pay that segment, because I come from a very middle class family, so every dollar that was going into the
Mm.
tuition was a lot expensive on my parents' pocket. So they were very happy that I got that, and being able to get on the dean's list as well. I think these were some of the academic achievements that I had that made me really proud. But ultimately, just being able to, be involved on campus. So I was a part of our computer store team. I also helped with orientations. Being part of the student council. So things like that. Just being involved on campus. Because I remember the first semester I had, I was so quiet. I just didn't know how to fit in. I would see all these activities happening in the cafeteria, and I was always like, I want to be involved in some of it. And it would be, because I was that in my high school. I was always the all-rounder kid and always involved in competitions and being the student council. So I wanted to bring that back here, and I was able to do that once I sort of got through that initial breaking the ice, being friendly with other people. And ultimately, towards the end of it, I just was so involved with everything. And then I had my internship with KPMG that my life just took, it was just such a smooth transition of from my program to my full-time work, and I didn't really have to face a lot of difficulties towards the later end of it. And I think that entire journey of just being able to find a good job in Canada was the most fruitful thing I could have had out of my journey and in George Brown. And ultimately, I think the seeds of being able to become an entrepreneur also started there. So I'm thankful that I was able to, work on that and being able to just build my own company now. So all of that happened because of George Brown.
That was a lot of milestones. Great. So, all right. So, lastly, could you share some of your future goals and aspirations and how you plan to continue making a positive impact on your young clients, the students looking for jobs, looking for careers? How do you help them?
The end goal is to get ISMEPOWER into every single institution in Canada. So how we help students is essentially we are a network of employers and higher education institutions, and we build those collaboration between them through our own technology portal where students can apply for jobs, gain resources, attend events, also connect with their mentors and alumni. So essentially, the end goal is to be able to get this into every single institutions. We are at the first phase of it where we have integrated our software in 5 institutions, and that's the first segment of our launch. And starting spring of 2024, we'll welcome the next 5 partners. So 5 at a time, and hopefully the goal is to have all 700 in Canada, and then become a worldwide company. So that's the end goal with ISMEPOWER. And of course, along the way, I just want to be able to, have settle down and have a life in Canada. I think being so away from family and not really having a family in Canada makes you feel ultimately that you want that little place of your own within this big world. So I hope I'm able to settle down, have a family, and grow that family along with growing a business and continue to make impact in people's life, which includes my family as well as the clients that I have, just by being the best that I can and providing them with what they need. And I think I've been able to build a career by just doing that, about just being helpful to others and being curious
Yes.
and always wanting to learn and always wanting to pick on a new task and doing that. And I think I would continue to do that in my personal and professional life. And I think I'm now craving a bit of a slow down after a few years, because it has been crazy wild ride since I left home at 18 till to now. And it's been I think 9 years of just learning and always building something new and keep going at it and not really taking a break. So I'm looking forward to, continue to build ISMEPOWER, and after that actually slow down a bit so that I get to also enjoy life and not just run after one milestone after the other. But this was the time to do it, and I'm glad that I went all in and left not even 1% of my energy behind and gave it all. And I'm thankful that that got us to where we are today with ISMEPOWER and with my life. And I want to just continue doing that.
Awesome. That was amazing. And it was really, really great talking to you, Ramneet. You definitely are one of our star students. And lots of luck to you and ISMPOWER. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.